This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome in, Chris Allman with me, recovering from an Astros loss last night.
Oh, really?
So
I didn't watch.
If he's a little bit sour, if you say, like, what's up with Chris today? He has notes for Dusty Baker that have not been taken yet, and that's what it is. Maybe he'll get around to them.
My notes are the same as every other Astros fan's notes today. And it's one simple lineup change. But alas, let's talk college football.
Yeah, absolutely. So a really crazy weekend. When you start out on Thursday night with Houston and West Virginia, and
yeah, I thought that was going to be a good omen.
Oh, yeah.
It was not.
Houston and West Virginia, crazy ending. Then you have a crazy ending in Colorado versus Stanford, where they're up 29-0 and lose that game in overtime. And Stanford, honestly, for the most part, if you watch Stanford this year, they have no business on the field with even Colorado, who is above average, but not championship winning.
Are they above average?
I think I'd say above average.
Okay.
They're above average, but like they're not, the teacher would be proud of them that they're trying real hard, but not putting them on the honor roll.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
Most improved.
There you go.
Look at him. He's not.
They don't need summer school anymore.
No. Okay. He's not just drawing pictures of kittens on his spelling test anymore. Like, just doing well. So, yeah, no, they're on the way up. And I don't know if you saw the Deion Sanders, Kenan Thompson SNL sketch.
Loved it.
It was great.
I'm actually surprised you didn't send it to me because you're kind of you remind me when there's something really worth seeing on SNL.
The thing I usually send you, they did right before he came on.
And you didn't send it to me?
No, I need to send it to you.
Let's just put Joke Swap up on the TV and watch it.
Well, when he came in, he said, "I like that black dad joke." That's what that was.
Okay.
That's what that was.
Okay.
So that's exactly what that was.
Okay.
So yeah, it was just a really short one. But it was just that.
It's the best thing SNL does.
And it was one way. It was just one way. They totally set Colin up.
I love
he was
that.
just, come on, it's the first episode. So, anyway, there was that game. Then we have Oregon and Washington, which was crazy. Shout out also to Colorado State. Things happened in the Mountain State. Is that Colorado?
Keystone State.
The Keystone State.
Is that it? It's Keystone State, right?
What is Colorado?
I've already annoyed Jack
Yeah.
pre-show. I'm not going to bother him
Yeah.
again.
In the Mile High State, whatever it is. I don't know. I should know these things.
Centennial State.
Colorado's the Centennial State?
Yes.
Huh. Okay. In the Centennial State, Colorado State also won on a Hail Mary this week. Oregon lost by missing a field goal at the end of the game, which could have probably been completely avoided had they made some better decisions on fourth downs.
Yeah.
But, and we'll talk about this in the next segment, there's two extremes to this. There's Dan Lanning, who goes against the analytics by trying too hard. And then there's Jimbo Fisher, who goes against the analytics by not believing that they're a thing.
Yeah, by completely ignoring them.
He's like a flat earth truther when it comes to analytics. Look, there's a mountain range around that keeps us from all falling off.
Pennsylvania's the Keystone State, guys.
Yeah, that's what I thought. We're like Dumb and Dumber there.
This segment might be worse than last week's first segment where I think we talked about Pee Your Pants Kid for 10 minutes.
That John Denver's full of, man. That's where we went. But Oregon and Washington was no knock on any of the other really good games there were this week, but that was the game of the game of the year. And it was, I think Texas and Oklahoma was the game of the year. Now Oregon and Washington is the game of the year.
Yeah.
And that one might hold up as the game of the year, the way it went down. And, I like games that don't change my opinion about either team. Good games, because my opinion about Oregon is still the same. They're still fantastic. They're going to win most of the rest of the ones, if not all the rest of the ones they play. Washington, probably the same, although now this is the first kickoff of the Pac-12 gauntlet where they could start eating their own.
Right.
But that game was absolutely wonderful, and Rome Odunze. I mean, Michael Penix is the Heisman frontrunner, but he is because he's got dudes like Rome Odunze who are just smooth.
Yeah, they are. You can't call them. Can you call them underrated?
Not anymore.
Or are they just underhyped?
I think people,
those are two different things.
I think people were waiting to see because they had not. Well, it appeared they hadn't played anybody yet, but they had played Arizona, who is
put a thrashing on
Wazoo. Yeah,
with
Fafita, their new quarterback. Yeah, so the Pac-12,
it's the most fun conference in football.
The farewell tour
is awesome.
It's amazing. It is amazing. But that was the only really good team they've played. And I say that because I do think that Arizona is starting to clearly find itself. They've lost a couple close games in a row to Washington and USC, and then they just drubbed Wazoo. So Washington, though, hadn't done that. Now they've proven it against Oregon, who, maybe because like Colorado is who they are, people thought, well, I mean, what they did to Colorado. But what they did do to Colorado was something special, considering that they held them to 6 points.
Yeah. Yeah, no, you're right. There was nothing about that Oregon Washington game that made you walk away from it and think either you didn't walk away from it and think that we had been, that Oregon were frauds. There was nothing about that. Yeah. Like you said, 2 weeks in a row. Was Texas OU last weekend?
Yeah.
2 weeks in a row where the game of the day delivered.
Yeah.
And you did. You left that game going, I'd really like to see those two teams play again in their conference championship game.
Yeah.
Like you really badly want to see that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. Elsewhere, USC has got problems on top of problems. It's not just the defense. Their offensive line got a little bit exposed this week. Caleb Williams threw 3 interceptions for the first time in his career. Notre Dame rose to the moment after getting embarrassed last week in Louisville. And I think that tells you what you need to know about what the future is going to be for Marcus Freeman, because he hasn't figured out who he is as a head coach completely yet, but when he does, holy cow. Yeah. Because I think one of the things he's going to have to figure out is, how do you do this every week at Notre Dame, playing the schedule you're going to play, with also, you can't, you don't have Stanford-level academic standards, but you're just one rung on the ladder below them.
Yeah.
And they're not going to change that. They never have and they never will.
Right.
Nor should they. But you can't, sit around and wait for you can't wait for the Rudies of the world that actually have talent to get in from Holy Cross. You can't do that.
Rudy Rudiger ain't walking through that door, Marcus.
No. Yeah. There's not if I have 3 good semesters at Holy Cross, I can get in and walk on.
I feel tell me if you think this is fair assessment of Marcus Freeman. He had those early last year. You can just disregard those, right?
Yeah.
That's growing pains right out of the gate. You make some mistakes, no big deal. I feel like we're really starting to see with Freeman where his floor is and where his ceiling is, right? Floor is, we know he's a good coach. Now it's just a matter of degrees.
He might lose a game to Marshall because he, got caught a little flat-footed.
Yeah.
Things like that. But also that coach, Charles Huff, is one of those guys who's he lost to Marshall because he ran up against another really good coach, and that guy caught him flat-footed and not ready. But he didn't lose to Marshall because he didn't take a kney or anything.
Right.
He lost to Marshall because they weren't ready. That guy was. They were. So he's clearly really smart. He's clearly really. If you see some of the things they do in the offseason, social media-wise, he's kind of plugged into how to make it fun.
Yeah.
And he seems like he's got a good vibe around Notre Dame, which can be, take it from me as a person who grew up in the Catholic Church, where Notre Dame is always there's always somebody at your church hey, you think you're going to go to Notre Dame? I don't know. Indiana's kind of cold, and I've gone to Catholic school my whole life. I thought, I want to try something. Well, you should try Notre Dame.
Is that really in the Catholic Church? Are they I don't like to use the term groom. Are they breeding? Are they?
That's not a good one either.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. My dad
encouraging.
My dad used to say it. He goes, the reason Notre Dame can stay so consistently good is they have a recruiter in every town.
Yeah, no, that's
because
fair.
there's a Catholic church everywhere, right?
Right.
So Jack knows what I'm talking about. Like there is, like, no matter where you are in the country, there is Notre Dame has a foothold in that church because there will be Notre Dame fans. Even though they didn't go there, they're just Catholic and they pick the football team that's the Catholic team. So that's what they do, so.
It's not as big as it used to be, I don't
Yeah.
think, because Notre Dame probably didn't win enough for it to stay at that level, but it's absolutely true. Like, most Catholics have a soft spot for Notre Dame unless they've got some other college affiliation that makes them not like Notre Dame.
Did you grow up like in Catholic school or Catholic church?
All boys Catholic.
Okay.
Yeah, see,
Taught
he
by
was
monks.
he was even he was like I was like this part Catholic school. He was extreme.
Okay.
Like
Jack's our Catholic expert.
Yeah.
Good. We've needed
Hey,
one of those on
look,
this
And
show.
I root against Notre Dame.
yeah, here's the deal.
Bad experience?
Like where I say I'm into
High school ex-girlfriend.
yeah. Yeah, I'm into extreme sports. I once rode behind a boat in a water tube, an inner tube, and then Jack's like, "Oh yeah, I go skydiving."
Yeah.
That's how.
Jack's like, remember that guy that jumped out of space and free fell to Earth? That's me.
That's
I'm
you.
the
That's-
Catholic version of
Yeah,
that.
that's how that is. Yeah, that's how that is. So Notre Dame has always had that. Like I heard it my whole life. Look, the pastor I had growing up, Father Anglem, may he rest in peace, a wonderful, wonderful human being. He would. In Florida, people who've listened to me on the radio or watched know the stories, but I've told it 100 times, but I do feel the need to tell you. So in Florida, they have 3:30 Saturday afternoon masses. And the reason they have that, the reason they gave, and the reason that the actual Vatican approved it, because you're not supposed to have vigils until after sundown. So most of them are like 5:30, 6 o'clock on Saturday. But this one's at 3:30. The reason they gave is, listen, we've got some older people. Sometimes it's just best to like get them in and get them out and move on. And Sundays become difficult because there's, if you're in a home, there's less staff on Sundays and things like that. So that was the reason. And church was like, yeah, it sounds reasonable to me. That's not the reason. That was a lie. So when all those people who made that story get to heaven, the first thing they'll have to answer to is like, you lied about the whole, this is the reason you need a 3:30 mass, right?
And it was because of?
It's because of the early bird special.
Okay.
That's why.
Really?
Yes, it's totally because of the early bird special. It's because people in South Florida, Catholic retirees in South Florida are not paying $25 for a steak. They're not doing it. You can go to hell. I'm paying $9.99. I'm getting here at 4:30. That's like.
And I'm going to heaven.
Okay. I think we talked, it's okay for this show to go off the rails
Yes.
a little bit, and I think we're there. I don't know that, yeah, you think?
Yeah.
I don't know that Baptists are that way about any school. Like, you will not meet a Baptist in Kentucky who's a crazy go nuts Baylor person.
No, and it would certainly help Baylor if they were.
Yeah.
Like, again, there's only one other school you can compare it to is BYU.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
Now, I've had like a friend of mine who went to Wake Forest, also a Baptist school, come to a game at Baylor because his dad was a Baylor grad and be like, oh man, this is totally my vibe. And I was like, well, yeah.
Yeah.
He's a preacher now. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. But so that priest, Father Anglem, he was the pastor. So most of the time he did not have to do the 3:30 Saturday afternoon mass. But we had two priests that were from Poland. And we had a priest that was from Haiti. And so occasionally some of their outreach that they would do with certain people would be during like that Saturday afternoon, especially Father Ron, our priest from Haiti. Like he had a lot in South Florida. He had a lot to do with the Haitian refugees and all that.
Yeah.
So sometimes Father Anglem would have to step in for Father Ron or Father Stammet and do the Saturday 3:30 mass. He would give, because he was such a huge Notre Dame fan, you want to talk about the most contracted sermons ever. There's different, when they bless communion, there's different Eucharistic prayers, always the shortest one. No matter what time of the year it was and which one he was supposed to do, always going to be the shortest one. And I mean, his sermons would be like, today we have the story of Jacob and Esau. As you know, Jacob was handsome and Esau was very hairy. And that's unfortunate. all right, let's do the prayers of the faithful. Just on. Like that's it. There's probably a great lesson in there. But he was just like, you know what? You guys have all heard it. You're 86 years old. Let's get on with it. And then he would dart. I would watch him dart across the street to the rectory where the where they were instructed to have the Notre Dame game already on the television downstairs when he walked in the door.
Somebody is on YouTube right now, and their algorithm said, I think you would like this sports show, Triple Option.
Yeah.
And they clicked on it a moment ago to hear you doing Father Ron's impersonation, and they are so confused.
Father Anglin.
Father Anglin. They're so confused as to what they clicked on.
I didn't even do the full impression because it's an impression that no one would get unless you knew him.
This started out as a Marcus Freeman conversation.
But Notre Dame. But he would do things like, we would talk, I'll just do it, him talking about Notre Dame football.
Okay.
Paul, how are you today? Did you see Ron Paulus the other day? Quite the game he had. He threw for 212 yards and I believe ran for another. So when he was giving sermons, it was even funnier. Today we're going to talk about the Sermon on the Mount. The loaves and the fishes. He was Irish and he had this real he wasn't.
It's an odd cadence.
Yeah, it was so strange, but he was great. He was amazing. But anyway, he's a huge Notre Dame fan. So again, back to it. They do have recruiters in every town.
Okay.
But like Jack's a different generation.
Yeah.
He has not experienced what we did when we were younger, where 1988 was the last time, or 87 was the last time they won the national title.
Yeah.
So there was all this pageantry to them. They haven't won it since then. So we grew up with this is why. And so if you imagine growing up in that, the atmosphere, there was always what are your top 4 schools you want to go to? And if you didn't say Notre Dame, you're like, well, you can go to confession this week and we'll get that worked out. Everybody sins, son. It's fine.
I'm more confused by the Catholic faith now than I was 15 minutes ago.
Oh, look,
man,
living it your whole life. There's twists and turns you're never going to see coming.
As I look out of the corner of my eye and see the play like a champion sign, I may smack that on the way out.
Here's the deal. There's a reason the Da Vinci Code was interesting. I mean, it's not because it was all straightforward.
Oh my goodness.
But.
Is that your week? That's our weekend recap.
Yeah, that's our weekend recap. No, but and there's a couple we need to get to rapid fire before we.
I'm fired up about Carolina.
Yes,
Tez Walker about that one.
Tez Walker 3 touchdowns in his first. He played a little bit a week ago just to kind of get his sea legs back, and then they ran him through the full practice. He completely changes.
Yeah.
What I think about that, I knew they're already ACC title contenders, but I thought, do they have enough? If you're playing against Michigan in a playoff game, if you beat Florida State and you're undefeated in the playoff and you play Michigan, do you have enough guys that are going to make Michigan hurt? Yes, they do with Tez Walker. He is an absolute stud.
Yeah,
and you can see why they fought so hard to get him there.
Sure,
Not just because he deserved to be there, and the NCAA made a stupid arbitrary ruling, but he's a fantastic player, and you can see where his livelihood is going to be. Mm-hmm. So yes, he deserved to be there. So they fought hard for him, and good for Mack Brown, for finally having his guy.
Yeah,
and I bet you Appalachian State, who's the only close win that UNC's had, is really glad that he went in that one. We wouldn't have even had a prayer.
What's been your experience? You could have very few experiences, very bad ones, very good ones. What's your experience been with Mack Brown as a member of the media?
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
I feel like he was always great with the media. Just wondering if that was your experience.
He's fantastic.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic human being.
I thought he was great in the media.
Yeah.
I thought he was really good on TV.
He's good at everything he does.
Yeah.
I honestly, if Mack Brown retired and had a cooking show, I'm sure it would be great.
You'd watch it.
Whatever it would be great. He was, and that's what I think Texas realized in the immediate aftermath of firing him, knowing that they needed to do something new. But Charlie Strong came in, you're oh, he's not going to be good at all the little things it takes to be a coach at that place.
Yeah,
that's what I think. Sark's actually kind of good at them. Tom Herman wasn't, but that's where Mack excels.
Yeah.
Is in the little things. He's a very sincere person, Yeah. Although I will tell you this, we would go times when he was at Texas, gaps where we wouldn't get them on the show or whatever. And then they would, like, we would have like one of the kids they were recruiting from Temple or Catalina on, and the kid would be on, and then Mac would be on right after it.
Yeah.
Bill Little, may he rest in peace, just passed away. Great guy. He was kind of the one you went to set up Mac for a while before he retired. And, you know, Smokey would call and say, hey, we're going to have so-and-so on the show this week. And you go, oh, okay. And then he would call back and go, what time is he on? He's like, oh, he's on at 4:30. Can we do 4:45? Yeah, I mean, whatever time you want.
He's a savvy guy, man.
Like, we can move the kid. Like, no, don't move the kid.
Yeah. He's a savvy guy.
Yeah. So then he would call and be like, hey, you know, we were on the radio right after each other, you know, because he can't talk about him.
Right.
But that was just that was his conversation starter for the kid that day. Those little things, like, to me, you know, show, like, that's how Mac is. Like, he didn't win the national championship by accident.
When I was in newspaper and writing for the Belton paper is when they were recruiting Ramonce Taylor, who was on that 05 national championship team. And he came to one of Ramonce's basketball games. And I'm telling you, man, it's the only time I ever saw it in action. It's the only time I ever saw Mac in action. Just sitting with Ramonce's family. I mean, he was the first guy Ramonce went to after the game. Ramonce gave him a big old hug. Like, I saw it in action, and I was like, he made me want to play for him. Well, I was like, man, I would.
Mac is in the Bobby Bowden school of, this is how you recruit. Like, he's the master of the living room. Yeah. Right? He's the one, you know, who's going to go do dishes after dinner, you know, who's not.
I tell you what, speaking of religious, Bobby Bowden would have been great anywhere. Bobby Bowden would have been great at a Baptist, like a place like Baylor.
Yeah.
He would have killed it.
He would come here and speak, and then everybody like, oh, that's the guy we needed. And like, well, sorry. we needed him more because we're a school full of sinners.
That's true.
Believe me, you have no idea the work he was doing. He gave him from free shoes. Like Mother Teresa. That's what he was doing. People thought he was coaching football. No, he was
an actual saint.
He was saving people for sure. But yeah, no, I think North Carolina could really do some things. And then the other big top 25 matchup was Oregon State throttled UCLA.
Yeah.
And that surprised me a little bit because I picked UCLA. It surprised me that game was so in Oregon State's hands, and UCLA, whose defense has been really good, could not contain them. But
yeah,
but that's other Pac-12, you know, ridiculous, you know, Royal Rumble cage match they're going to have all year long.
Sure, yeah.
You know.
How many teams do they have in the top 20 right now? I mean, it's changed since Saturday, but
yeah.
Gosh, at one point, let's just real quick. As of right now, they've got 5 teams in the top 20, and UCLA is still 25. Yeah. And I'm not the biggest fan of polls, but if it is the barometer in the regular season, if it's just what we use, I'll give it a little bit of credence. But 2 in the top 10, 4 in the top 15, and 6 in the top 25. And still so many conference games left to play for them to, again, like you said, eat their young. Yeah. They're going to beat each other up for the next few weeks.
So, I think it's going to get really interesting when it comes down to CFP time. You know, when you potentially have, I mean, there might be one undefeated team, honestly. There might be one.
Who do you think that would be?
It might be Georgia.
That's what I would say.
It might not be because they just lost Brock Bowers. And, you know, when they've had these struggle times where they've got to get out of a funk, they're like, okay, well, what plays can we call for Brock Bowers? So he's going to be out for a little bit. He just had surgery on that high ankle sprain.
Okay.
So they expect a full recovery, but that's one of those. This is what I learned from covering the Cowboys. Whenever you hear for some time, then they have no idea. When you hear 4 to 6 weeks, it's really like 8 to 10.
Okay.
You know, because they're 4 to 6 weeks. Like sometimes it's 4 to 6 weeks, and legitimately it's 4 weeks, and the injury wasn't as bad as they thought. But every time I heard 4 to 6 weeks in the Cowboys, I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
DeMarcus Lawrence has been out 4 to 6 weeks 9 times in his career, and it's never been 6. It's never.
He's missed the full season with a 4 to 6 week injury.
Yeah. Like, oh, well, got to that 6th week, turns out.
Oh, it's worse than we thought.
4 to 6 more. Yeah. You know, so that's.
I think you're right. I mean, because I don't know that if I don't think the SEC is as good as it has been advertised in the last few years.
Well, it's not.
That may be true, or also it may be optics. I think because there's so much attention being paid to the fun of the Pac-12, we might be we're just kind of forgetting that it's a good conference, but not as good as it used to be.
Yeah.
And Alabama's evidence of that almost every week.
Well, look, it's not as good. The transfer portal's hurt it.
Yeah.
You can't. Now, they're more equipped to weather the storm than anyone else, but the conference that's benefiting the most from schools like Georgia and Alabama being down is the Pac-12 because, Bo Nix would be maybe the best quarterback in the SEC right now if he had stayed. Well, I don't know, because if he had stayed at Auburn, he wasn't going to have the coaching that he had.
Right.
But Bo Nix, one of the best quarterbacks in the Pac-12, well, he was an SEC guy. So, and he's not the only one who's gone over there that's found success. So,
Bo Nix is always my litmus test for how long guys are staying in college now, because I remember seeing maybe a season opener when he was at Auburn, and I watched it with my pregnant wife, and I now have a 4-year-old son.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, Bo Nix is my guy that makes me go, geez, guys are in college for a long time.
Yeah.
And he hasn't even been in college the longest.
No. And I think that's maybe about to shake itself out now that COVID years will be over. But and he'll be in the NFL next year.
Yeah.
So when we come back, there are two extremes of this topic. There's the Dan Lanning, damn the torpedoes, I'm going with my gut extreme. And then there's Jimbo Fisher. I'm in a bunker. We're not moving. All this will pass. I'll figure it out. I'm not going for it. I'm not going to use 3 timeouts with 2 minutes and 47 seconds left and Tennessee about to punt to me because we're going to get the ball at the 12-yard line and I'm afraid of 88-yard drives.
He's like, no one can do that. No one can drive 88 yards for a touchdown. That's insane.
No. Sometimes I do think people are victim of watching only the games that they're involved in. It happens to sports writers a little bit.
Yeah.
It happens to coaches too, I think. Because if Jimbo Fisher turned on the television after an A&M game, just say I wonder how the rest of the world does this. Yeah. He'd be like, what sorcery is this?
He's watching Michael Penix. And he's like, what? How's he moving so fast?
That was 3 plays. There's still a minute left on the clock. What happened?
He's completely befuddled by how Dylan Gabriel won that OU Texas game. So he did what?
I don't know. Hold on. There's camera tricks, right? Special effects. Those are the big. We need some of those.
He's the first ever sports hoaxer.
Yeah.
He's like, nah.
Get Lucasfilm on the phone. We want some of those high-dollar special effects that Oklahoma and Washington have. All right, when we come back, we'll talk about the extremes, Jimbo Fisher and Dan Lanning. This is the Triple Option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Alongside Chris Allman. And Chris, we've seen in the last couple of weeks, we've seen Texas A&M do it twice, where being too conservative lost them a game. And then we saw Oregon, where being too aggressive lost them the game. Now, I don't criticize Dan Lanning as much for going for it all of those times. But 2 of those times that he kicked field goals, he would not have been in that situation and could have punted at the end. But you can be too aggressive and get yourself in a pickle where you ignore the analytics too much on either extreme.
Yeah.
And as we've seen with our political spectrums, living in the extremes only makes you lose. It's true.
Yes.
If you live in the extremes, you're only going to lose. Whatever it comes to in life.
Yeah.
Like, take this lesson away. If you live in the extremes, you're only going to lose.
Yeah, let's all just live in the middle.
Stuff gets done in the middle, man.
Yeah. Just be comfortable in the middle.
Life moves on. Annoyances are just like minor.
Yeah.
They're not major. They're just like, oh,
Yeah.
man, it's going to take 20 minutes to get my car done. All right.
Okay, can I ask you a question? I don't want to be the antagonist, but when we were talking about discussing this too conservative and too aggressive, let me ask, who determines too aggressive and too conservative? Is it the analytics? Is it the numbers that say on fourth down? And talk to me about analytics in that. Is it down in distance? Is it time of game?
It's all. It's everything.
Okay.
So where these things weren't really readily available before,
right?
Because there weren't computers that you could put them into and groups of people that would kind of have this idea. You kind of have to have a guy like, in baseball, it happened with Bill James, right?
Uh-huh.
So Bill James was the guy, and then he begat this whole world
every
of
GM in baseball now.
every GM in baseball uses analytics because it's smart. You can't just go by analytics. Sometimes it's, I know this guy is 1 for 8 against this guy all time.
Yeah.
But the pitcher's curveball's not working and he hits 350 against curve. I think he's going to hit, if he throws that curveball, he's going to hit one out, or he's due for just, this is the time. I feel it. You have to trust your gut. I think that's it. The way I like where Dan Lanning uses it is that he trusts his gut, but he also has analytics in mind and goes, okay, now against Washington, he just went against it one too many times. And really, I think the problem with Oregon wasn't that they went for it a couple of those times. It was the play calls. And I saw this early in the day with Florida State. They didn't pay for it at all. They won 41-3. And they were doing that because they knew they were going to win 41-3.
Yeah.
They just were feeling it. But they went for it on a couple fourth downs, and the plays that they called, that Mike Norvell called in that game against Syracuse, were low percentage plays. Like, they weren't, if you're going to go for it on fourth down, and Oregon did this, one of the plays at the goal line was just a one-man option play. Man, if you're going to go for it at fourth and 3 at the 4-yard line, man, you got to get more than one guy involved because you got to give yourself room for creativity, and you have Bo Nix, one of the most creative quarterbacks in the country. Yeah. And the plays that they called on those fourth downs were all, this is the only thing that can work on this play. So if Washington reads it the right way, which they did every single time, then you're screwed. There's no room for improvisation. You're not letting, if you're going for it on fourth down and you're confident, the reason is because you have Bo Nix who's back there. You have to give him the option to be Bo Nix.
Yeah.
Don't tell Picasso to paint squares. Like, let him go be Picasso.
Yeah.
And that's where they messed up. Not in the fact that they went for it all those times, although the last one, punting would have been really smart because even if you had a touchback, they have to go a lot longer.
Yeah.
And
what do you think drives that? Do you think it is for a head coach, like let's say you're Dan Lanning and you've got the headset on and the decision ultimately falls on you, right? This is not a coordinator who's got total autonomy, right? I'm assuming Dan Lanning's going to make the final call. What do you think drives over aggression? Do you get caught up in the moment? Are you aware of what people might say about you if you get too conservative?
The great thing about Dan Lanning is I don't think he cares what anybody says about him at all.
Right.
Or he does care, but like fuels it differently.
Yeah.
But in the moment, he's just coaching how he's coaching.
Okay.
Right. And he's aggressive. He got, and you have that ego in your mind of like, look, I'm the head coach at Oregon because my defense won a national championship at Georgia, and I'm here for a reason. So I'm going to be me, which I think is great.
Sure. Yeah.
But sometimes you do need to like just take a step back. And I think that, here's the deal. He makes the field goal. He's not wrong.
Right.
It worked out for him.
Yes.
But he also then would have to go look back and be like, man, could have not let that one come down to that.
So the decision, the determination that he's over aggressive is really just because of the end result, right? Like it's.
I would say the same thing if they get, because you would be like, well, I kind of got out of that one.
Yeah.
If
Got bailed out.
Say Washington goes all the way down the field and gets to the 2-yard line and, sputters. Well, then your defense bailed you out of that decision.
Right.
But they didn't, you're 2 yards away from where it would have been like, oh,
yeah.
You also, I think it's a weird thing because you're taking into account two things. One, we could end the game right now. Two, I want to end the game right now because I don't want to give the ball back to the Heisman Trophy frontrunner and his stable of wide receivers that would, make anybody like Kirby Smart jealous.
Yeah.
Even him.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. So it's just that balancing act. So I would take being too aggressive over what's going on at Texas A&M right now, which has them doing a different kind of math is how do we get $95 million together and pay this out?
Yeah.
Because that's the discussions. I don't know anything. I'm going to preface this by saying this.
Yeah, I did see you tweet that this weekend. It might be time to
start the clock because this is Sam Kahn wrote an article about it in the Athletic. I'm sure we'll have him on the show later this week on 365 Sports. You see what it is. There's no more. If this was a scientific experiment and you were trying to have a drug that cures migraine headaches, you'd be like, well, this isn't it. Yeah. You've seen enough.
Yeah.
It doesn't cure migraine headaches.
Yeah.
It's not a cure. You're going to have to move on. Now, where A&M is paying the prices, not looking at where Jimbo Fisher was in the moment in 2016 or 2017 when they hired him, and looked at what he had done.
Yeah.
And they are getting somewhere in the middle of that at A&M.
Yeah.
They are paying Rolls-Royce prices for Kia performance. And that's just how it is.
There goes our shot at Kia as a sponsor.
Well, look, I think even Kia would tell you we don't have those features.
What if they did?
What
if they were like, no, give us a second.
If I walked into Kia and said, I would like to give you $185,000 for a car, they'd be like, you mean 4 cars, 5 cars,
a fleet
6 of them?
You'd like to buy a fleet?
Are you buying some for a company? What? Not just one. I would like your car. That is the absolute creme de leg room upon leg room. They'd be like, we're Kia.
Great. That'll be $26,000.
Did you have septuplets and they're all turning 16 at the same time and they all get their own car? What? Why are you here? That's what I'm curious about.
Oh,
no,
my.
I think they are going to start having that discussion because the other fact that Jimbo Fisher cannot avoid is that Texas is coming in. Mm-hmm. And that's who all your alumni care about, even if they said they didn't. And
what is your...
Texas is coming in loaded for bear. Texas would be one of the best teams, if not the best team in the SEC this season, if they had started this season.
Okay, so let me ask you, because I think you probably... I'm not saying you know this definitively, you're not breaking news, but as someone who's got their finger on the pulse of the industry, so to speak, how quickly was the first time someone did float the idea of this is not our guy? Is there any type of...
Well, it's been going on for about a year now.
Okay, so it wasn't 2018, right?
No.
It wasn't one bad loss and booster was like...
No, it was...
I want him gone.
Okay, he's got to get... The problem is that Jimbo's recruiting to a level that Kevin Sumlin could only have dreamed about. Mm-hmm. He's getting top 5 to 10 classes all the years, where Kevin Sumlin had one that cracked into the top 10, and then much like the one that Jimbo had that was number 1, half of them all left. Yeah. And which is kind of... History repeats itself in different levels of crappy for A&M fans. And... when you get the number 1 recruiting class, oh, that's amazing. Okay, finally, you've shot past Alabama and Georgia and LSU. When those guys are juniors and seniors, watch out. But then you've got a coach who is not living in the now schematically and the way that he coaches games. So he's got, again, to go back to a car analogy, he's got like Ferraris and Lamborghinis that he's driving the speed limit with.
Okay.
You know, like you what are you doing?
Yeah.
If you really do, and I posted this question to Craig and Smokey and Garrett on our text yesterday. If you asked most coaches in the top, even in the top 25, if you took the coaches in the top 25 and said, would you, if I picked your staff up and dropped you into College Station right now and picked him up and dropped you into their staff, how many games would you win with that roster? And most of the coaches in the top 25 would say 12. I mean,
all right. So let me ask, this is a follow-up question. This is kind of in two parts. Who does this well? Who really does aggressive at the right time, conservative at the right time? And to me, it would need to be someone who's actually had to make that decision in a game like Lanning did, a number 7 versus number 8 game.
Well, I mean, I think the guy who's really perfected it is Nick Saban.
Sure.
I mean, he knows exactly when to do everything.
Yeah.
And of course, now granted, he's had so much talent that sometimes it's not even a worry about it.
Yeah.
I think Kalen DeBoer does it well. The Washington's coach. He clearly made the right decisions the other day. You know, Kirby Smart has done it well. It's not like.
I think to answer that question.
Oh, look, I'll tell you who's done it well. Really over the years is Dabo Swinney has done it really well.
Yeah.
Now he does not have the roster that could do that today. Like the same efficiency that he did before, but part of the reason
teams did.
Yeah, when you have the reason that Dan Lanning can be aggressive, look, Dave Aranda did it well in 2021.
Right.
He did great. You know why? Because he knew he had the roster to do it.
Yeah.
So when you have the roster to do it, you're not just taking a willy-nilly chance.
Right.
That's where I think Jimbo Fisher loses it, is
that's the
because
frustration.
he has got like the guys who can do these things, and he only does them when his hand is totally forced. Like, you have to go for it on this fourth down, because if you don't, the game is over.
Right.
And so, and it's not even just that, like, it's not just fourth downs, it's timeouts, or it's third down and mediums where he just goes, we're just on the wrong side of the 50 here. I don't want to get too aggressive. And you're like, well, you have Evan Stewart and Anais Smith and, like, you know, these, you know, big tight ends, Jake Johnson. Like, you've got guys who can go up and make plays. You've got running backs. You've got, like, Reuben Owens, the number 1 running back in the country last year. Like, figure out a way to get him more involved. You've got Le'Veon Moss, who's really good running. Like, you've got players who are good players. Create something for them to go make a play.
Yeah.
Evan Stewart was the number 1 wide receiver in the country. He's going to be talked about next year, probably like Roma Dunze and Marvin Harrison Jr. and all these guys are right now. He's a beast. Go let him be a beast. You know, don't be Professor Xavier and leave the X-Men at the mansion, man. Let him go wreak havoc.
Is he putting any kind of governor on Bobby Petrino? Does Bobby Petrino have a more riverboat gambler than?
I think the governor he is putting on Bobby Petrino is that Bobby Petrino calls the offense, but when it comes down to when you punt, when you use timeouts, well, it's not up to Bobby Petrino. Yeah. That's up to Jimbo Fisher.
Yeah.
And Jimbo Fisher could just say, "Hey, Bobby, I want to go. Do we want to go for it here?" And Bobby goes, "Yes." You know. And again, my experience is limited to being here for a long time, but I do know that, you know, when Jeff Grimes told Dave Aranda, "Hey, I'd like to go for it here," you know what Dave Aranda said? Yes.
Yeah.
When Kendall Briles told his dad, "Yes, I want to go for it here," same with Philip Montgomery, okay, because that's why they're there.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes the head coach has to go, "No, we're not going to do that here."
Yeah.
Like, let's think about this, because your job as the head coach is to see the whole picture. It's what the offensive coordinator's job is, to see that picture.
Yeah.
That's what you want him thinking about. You want him to go. You know, Dan Lanning was always going to go for those.
Yeah.
And Will Stein's up there, and like the communication has to come out between Will Stein and Dan Lanning in that offense is, let's call better plays when we do that. You know, but even now, Jimbo Fisher, like, a commonplace thing to do in the NFL and in college and heck in high school now. I saw it all the time in high school. If you got 4th and 6 at the 38-yard line, you might as well go for it. Because if you gain no yards, you've only given up 18 yards of field position.
Yeah.
And if you get the first down, then you still have the ball.
Yeah.
Because most of the time, if you're going to punt from the 38, the ball's going in the end zone. But you have to have a punter on top of punter to coffin corner those kind of things.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that those are the things that he's not doing because old school football told you that, well, I run this offense and they run the same offense and we're just going to knock each other in the dirt until one of us kicks a field goal. And like which is going to lead to our discussion about Iowa. And the last one is eventually you have to open things up a little bit. You cannot just keep, which is why I think the clock has started on Jimbo, because he's clearly shown, okay, you made me hire an offensive coordinator. I hired Bobby Petrino. Well, that's not what really they wanted.
Yeah.
They wanted you to hire a young and up-and-comer like Will Stein at Oregon. They wanted you to hire the next wave, and you said, all right, well, who can I get?
Who's the opposite of the next wave?
And not that Bobby Petrino isn't a brilliant coach, but he comes with baggage.
Yeah.
And he's got a lot of skins in the wall, and he's made their offense better. But also, if you're going to do that, if you're going to bring in Bobby Petrino and then be like, well, I'm going to give you 90% of the control, but the other 10% is really what's honestly been holding us back in the first place.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not giving that up.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that have held them back. Now they just have to do the calculus on, you have to buy out a guy at $95 million because you gave him the best contract in the history of contracts.
Sports.
Like, oh, good. It looked like, I'm just curious. It's 2017. I noticed that FSU has the worst offensive line in the country the last 2 years for a school that's how it is. How did that happen? Didn't ask that question, did you? Hey, how did you go from winning the national championship to where everybody's going to be kind of fine in a year or so once you're gone? How did that happen in 4 years?
Wouldn't you love to be a fly on the wall? Perhaps you have been in on conversations amongst really influential decision makers, but I really would love to sit and hear how that decision is ultimately made. What the data they're looking at that says this is absolutely the right guy.
Some of it is just overall, like, here's the other thing that A&M doesn't have to worry about when it comes to their fans. They're always going to go. They're always going to go.
Yeah.
Nebraska is the same way.
Yeah.
They're always going to go. So attendance is not your bellwether. Other places, you run into a dangerous amount of like, well, I'd like to keep this guy, but I don't know if next year we're going to sell enough tickets to justify me keeping him.
Yeah, Baylor's probably got a little bit of that.
Exactly, because their fans have responded with if things don't go even moderately well, like if there's a bit of I think it happens, I've seen it happen here, it happens probably everywhere, but Baylor is the one where like it should go exactly as I want it to, and it should be at the time I want it to be, and the weather I want it to be.
Yes.
I'm not going to go.
Yes. I want 60 points at 2:30. I want it to be 68 degrees outside. Other than that, I'm not going. Yeah. That's more accurate than probably people realize.
Yeah. I mean, that's a larger section of the fan base within Baylor than maybe some of the other percentage-wise.
My wife gets furious that they would play at 11 o'clock on homecoming because she's like, TV Network should understand how important the homecoming parade is at Baylor. And I'm like, that's funny, hon.
Yeah.
Do you think anyone at a TV network knows Baylor has a homecoming parade?
Let me tell you how they feel about parades. They finally, after years, stood up to the Rose Bowl and said, you're in or you're out. Parade be damned. And that's the proudest I've ever been of a group of people that I don't know and have made other bad decisions. That's the one I agree with.
Parade be damned should be the name of your memoir when you write it.
Look, I could do a solo mission to Mars and back. And if they came and said, we'd like to throw you a parade, I'd be like, no, you're not. You absolutely are not. We are not doing that.
Didn't Neil Armstrong get a parade?
Yeah, he did.
That's parade worthy.
That was the last time we needed one. Everybody else, he's already done it. You You don't need another parade for the next group of people who did something that Neil did.
I know you don't remember this, but at our previous media stop, when the Baylor women won the national championship, you guys, I was there with my family at the parade, and you guys called in to like get an update on the parade.
I remember.
And it was like, what's going on there? And I was like, it's not what you think.
Yeah. No,
a lot going on.
I remember because I'm the one who had to call you and then sit there and go, so are there like cars driving in a line? That sounds like a parade to me.
That thing ran out of steam so fast, like the interview that I think Smokey was like.
No, it would have been Tom.
No. This was in 2019.
The last one? Yeah.
I think Smokey was
he
like. He
also did that to spite me.
Yeah. He's like, Chris, you want your little girl to grow up and play basketball one day? Like that, we were so out of questions after about 90 seconds.
Yeah.
And that's parades.
Yeah, that's parades. That's how they are. Real quick segment, we come back entitled, How Does Iowa Keep Doing This and Why Are We Letting Them?
They can't keep getting away with it.
Yeah. This is the triple option on 365 Sports.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more. Fast just got faster.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Welcome to the Triple Option. Here's your host, Paul Catalina.
Welcome into the Triple Option. We call this segment, How does Iowa keep doing this and why are we letting them?
Yeah, I started perusing Iowa's schedule throughout the previous two segments. So if you've noticed why I've been yawning so much, it's because we decided we were going to talk about Iowa football.
I love a great defense. Nothing is like more exhilarating than watching a great defense knock people around, except for the fact that when that great defense does that, and then they get like 2 minutes to have some water, and then they have to go do it again.
Yeah.
Like, here's what I'm not even saying for me as a football fan. For Iowa's defensive players that are pouring their blood, sweat, and tears onto the field to stop these teams and crush them into a fine powder, for you not to give them like 2 completions in a row is just insulting not only to them, but the entire sport of football. Look, Walter Camp is dead. He's been dead for a long time. Here's a little historical note for you.
Okay.
When football was under attack in the early part of the 20th century, because people were dying in it, because it was just violent, Teddy Roosevelt loved the game enough to where he got a council together, and they finally put together a set of uniform rules. On said council was Walter Camp, who has awards named after him, was pioneering football coach and all that stuff. But he was only a pioneer insofar that he was one of the first football coaches and helped do those rules, but he thought the forward pass should be illegal. He thought it was cheating. So
is there a Kirk Ferentz tie in here?
Kirk Ferentz may not even be Kirk Ferentz. He just might be Vampire Walter Camp. Because it is so bad. It is so bad.
Yes, and you can have an explosive offense and not throw it 100 times a game. You can run it a lot and be explosive.
Yeah.
If you run it correctly and run certain schemes. They're not doing anything of the sort. They are just trying to get back on defense.
Yeah.
And if the ball happens to find the end zone, that's excellent.
Yeah.
But they don't really appear to be, other than someone's contract stipulation, they don't really seem to be aggressively in pursuit of the end zone.
No, and look, they're going to play Minnesota, Northwestern, Rutgers, Illinois, and Nebraska, all of whom don't have, this was the prolific offense that they were going to play. And after Penn State, who beat them 31-0. So you know what's going to happen when that Big Ten title game runs around. They're either going to play Penn State again, and the same thing's going to happen again, or they're going to play Ohio State and Michigan, and the same thing's going to happen then. So the Big Ten, thrilled that they're not going to have this format anymore, so that when it comes time to turn on the Big Ten title game, it's not going to be the team from the East, 1 billion, Iowa 6. And then you'll have people like, this is good old-fashioned old-school football. No, it's not even that. It's worse than old-school football. It's worse.
Is there an actual question as to why? Like, is there a question, why has there not been some forward progress?
Nepotism?
Is that what it is?
It's got to be
what it is.
Because,
but why is Brian Ferentz so married to this?
That's what surprises
nobody knows?
Me. Spite. I mean,
hey, I've seen guys manage American League Championship games series out of spite. So you can certainly offensive coordinate out of spite.
I think because he's, you can get a ladder and climb up whatever it is. He said he is doing this out of spite now. And again, much like I said to Jimbo Fisher, show up at a convention, sit down and listen and find out what these things here. They just watched and shut down Wisconsin's offense. Now, granted, good friend Tanner Mordecai, Midway product, broke his hand. So that really set Wisconsin back. Although had he finished that game, I don't think they would have scored 30 points. I think that they would have had a much better chance at breaking it open and winning the game because they only had to score 16. So could they have scored 10 more points? I think so if Tanner Mordecai is playing. But you just can't. I don't understand why you're not going, oh, look what, I'm watching them on film. You watch Penn State on film. Why would you not go, hey, I wonder if we can do any of that?
Yeah.
Just any of it.
Yeah. Is there some old antiquated argument about the conditions? Is it something about the majority of the season being played in cold weather?
I do think that you have to be. We had Matt Rule on the show last week, and I asked him about how much do you look out in the future and say, okay, here are the offenses that are coming into our league, the schemes that are coming into our league. How do I adjust to fit what I do well into competing with them? I said, look, there's going to have to be a certain part of our offense that has to account for playing here in Lincoln and playing in the places that we play. But you can't just have this is what Nebraska is going to do no matter where we go. No, you have to be more malleable to that.
Yeah.
Because, when Nebraska in the old days, when they were in the Big 8, the other 7 teams were pretty much running different variations of that offense, so they didn't have to worry about that. But now when you're in the Big 18, things are going to be different. You have to account for the variety of things you're going to see. And that's what I think Iowa's going to have to do. So, I think there's some of it look, you're really only going to win 10 games at Iowa or more if you have an offense that accounts for the fact that you're not going to be able to do everything you want to do every week.
Yeah.
So you better be able to do that. But this has doubled down on we'll be fine in an Arctic snow blast as opposed to it's just kind of chilly.
Right. I understand adjusting your offense for your talent and maybe even for your environment, right? I've seen it. High school and college are different animals, right? High school, you got the kids of the families that live there.
Yeah.
College, I feel like you
can go pick them.
That's what I'm saying. You could try and have some different talent. You just can't say, well, this is the personnel we have. This fits us best because you can change the personnel.
Yeah.
And so,
no, you can't again, if you're in Mart, Texas, you run the offense that Mart, Texas gives you because you're good. It's a small town, in Sandusky, Ohio, this is what you run because in this school district, this is who's been birthed to you.
Yeah.
You can't just change it. In fact, it's against the rules to go and try.
Right.
So if you're Iowa, Like, that's the other thing is that you could have said, all right, we're going to recruit. We know that we're not going to go out and recruit Carson Beck, that's at Georgia, or, Caleb Williams or those guys.
Right.
But there's plenty of guys who live in the middle of that play at Iowa.
Yeah.
Look, I'll just give you an example across the state. There's Brock Purdy's Brock Purdy's not the only Brock Purdy that's out there.
Right.
There's plenty of guys with his skill set. Now, he's taken it to a level now in the NFL that's surprising a lot of people. But if Iowa State can get a Brock Purdy,
sure,
then so can you.
Or even going back further, Seneca Wallace was like a really athletic, electric player for his time.
Yeah.
It's not like Iowa is just boring.
Now,
people.
part of that might be just because they win the Cyhawks so much, they don't respect anything that Iowa State does. But sometimes you can be like, ooh, hey,
Hey, it's 2 o'clock.
300 yards of offense in a game. I know it's 2 o'clock.
Sorry.
Jack's probably waving at us.
He is giving us the full lasso.
Yeah. Well, once I finish my thought, we'll go.
Okay.
But yes,
I'm about the clock.
Sometimes it's about respect.
Okay. You need a little more Jimbo with the clock and a little less Dan Lanning with the clock.
Okay. Maybe I do. Well, I'm fired up.
Take the knee and the game.
All right.
Hey, Mario.
All right, yeah.
Take
I'm
a
here,
knee.
Mario. All right. That's going to do it for us because Jack said so. Thanks, Chris. Bye.
If your business is like most, you need things done quickly. But if you're still tying your critical applications together on multiple shared public networks, you've probably been feeling the slowdown. And that's no good for business. A private UPN fiber network can get you and your business moving at the speed of light. Whatever you need, we can build it. Internet, Metro Ethernet, Waves, dark fiber. We deliver custom private networks and are focused on business customers only. Our next generation 100% fiber optic infrastructure offers you low latency and ultra scalable bandwidth with speeds up to 100 gigabit to run your critical applications. Your connection won't be limiting your performance anymore. It's diverse and scalable, so it can grow and change as your business grows and changes. And with a secure carrier-grade private network, you'll have all the reliability you need. Contact UPN today to learn more.